Hey guys, it's Kevin in my review for Mr. Robot, Season 4, Episode 4, Not Found, and holy shit, what an episode this was. I mean, once again, this season is not pulling any punches. They are going right for it. Also, I will say right off the bat, I do apologize for getting this review out a lot later than usual. This week has just been very busy. There's been a lot of stuff for me to cover, a lot of movies, a lot of that kind of stuff, so I just haven't really had time to review Mr. Robot until now, so hope you guys understand. And look, I'll just say right off the bat, a lot of people have been shitting on this episode. I have heard a lot of backlash, people even comparing it to this last season of Game of Thrones and saying that they're going in that direction, saying that, like, things are happening way too soon. And to be honest, I could not disagree more because I kind of love this one. In fact, this might be my favorite episode of the entire season. And I really did love a lot of what we got here. I like the fact this episode was a lot different. I like the fact this episode went in some really weird directions. You guys know I love this kind of stuff. And we're just getting into right now, though, a lot. So, of course, we're just going to jump right into it. So, a good portion of this episode, there's a lot of stuff that happens in it that I am very clear about, but there's also a lot of stuff that I didn't know about. And I actually like this idea for having this episode that's basically solely focused on Elliot and Tyrell. Yes, there's other stuff going on, but the main stuff is with them. And considering that Tyrell was a character that was always so mysterious, there was so little that was known about him. You know, he disappeared for most of Season 2. We didn't see him again until the third episode of Season 3, and then we knew more of what his whole deal was. Like, we saw him in the Season 2 finale, but then we really got to see him more in Season 3, and he's always been a character that they've hidden in that way. So I actually think it makes sense this episode was a lot weirder and a lot out there, but I also think this episode was a really great exploration of Elliot and Tyrell and their relationship, because aside from the fact that Elliot has always been gung-ho about taking down Tyrell, you know, in like the first season, meanwhile Tyrell has always had this crippling obsession with Elliot, we really haven't seen these two interact a lot. We've seen instances where Tyrell is bringing up things to Elliot, and Elliot has no idea what he's talking about because he's been blacking out, but we haven't really seen these two fully interact like we did here, and I gotta say, I really loved it. I really like what we got into with this dynamic, that you can see Tyrell and him being obsessed with Elliot, and him continuing to go on about it, but he also is very set on taking down, taking down White Rose. They have this plan, you know, Tyrell knows he's going to be CEO and things like that, but they end up hitting a dead end. Their car ends up breaking down a gas station and ends up catching fire. And so for a good portion of this episode, it's just them walking around the woods. And this could be very boring. This could be something that I know for a lot of people it was boring. I know a lot of people didn't like this episode because there wasn't a lot going on, but I actually really liked what they were trying to do there, because I feel like Sam Esmail used these desolate woods, kind of showing how truly directionless Tyrell really is as a character, because let's face it, Tyrell is someone who his entire goal throughout the entire series was to be CTO. This was the thing that he desired most. This was everything that he was leading up to, you know, that's why he ended up killing Sharon Knowles when he did. That's why he did many of the dastardly things he did in the front half of the series. It was all to be CTO. But of course, at the end of Season 3, Price tells him that this position means nothing. It's just like any other position. He would be subservient to Price, and that's really it. So this position he's wanted all his life, he himself has just, it's basically been completely useless. It was all for nothing. And since then, this character has felt very lost. And I would not say this character has been useless. I wouldn't say that. I think Tyrell has felt useless. He's kind of feeling like, what is my purpose beyond this? So at this point, he feels his only purpose is to take down White Rose and is to work with Elliot, because he doesn't really know what else he can offer at this point. And I think using these desolate woods is kind of a really good way of showcasing that, really just showcasing just how directionless Tyrell is as a person. I definitely really did like seeing that. And whether this was through small instances, like when he's with that, when he's at that store and this lady is recognizing him, and you can tell that he's annoyed by it. He doesn't like the fact that people are prophesizing him as like this hero and all that kind of stuff. He's very perturbed by that, which I gotta say, that is easily one of the funniest scenes in the entire show. And that's the thing I really liked about this episode, is that it could have been ultra dark, and I think that would have made it boring, but they actually had some really nice levity in there. Whether it was this, insane, like, store clerk thing that he was on Big Brother, and, just being all starstruck and things like that, and you seeing how annoyed Tyrell was, or Tyrell singing in Swedish, and that really annoying Mr. Robot. I mean, stuff like that. The show just gets so well, and I think what it did better than all the other episodes with Tyrell, who I truly do think this is his finest hour, is really just showing the juxtaposition in these two, but also showing how similar these two really are. I mean, Tyrell's the kind of person who, he needs some kind of purpose to drive him. He has this crippling ego, and you've seen that throughout the entire series. He has this really bad ego, but he also has a really bad inferiority complex, and we really touch upon that in this episode, especially the scene when he's talking to Elliot about, why do you wear that hood every single day? Why do you wear the same thing every single day? Whereas Tyrell, he's always had to stress about that. He's always had to consider the fact that, like, I gotta wear the right tie, I gotta wear the right suit, I always have to look presentable. Elliot is the complete opposite. He pretty much dresses the same way every single day, and really taps into the idea that the reason he does this is because he simply doesn't care. Because of his, social anxiety and things like that. Elliot just doesn't care about how he's perceived to the public. He tries to maintain autonomy as much as he possibly can, and he tries to maintain a sense of anonymity as much as he possibly can, and that's something that Tyrell just isn't really used to, and you can see that he's intrigued by it, and we get a really good sense of why Tyrell has this obsession with Elliot. It's not because the fact that he's in love with Elliot or something like that. It's more, I think he's jealous of him. I think Tyrell wishes that people didn't have as big of an expectation out of him, and he wasn't, trying to be CEO or CTO or something like that. That he simply was just another cog in the system. That he simply was someone like Elliot who, while he's done a lot of things, he is not as, cornered as someone like, say Tyrell is. It's really only White Rose and all the Dark Army that is on Elliot's tail right now, obviously. But a lot of this show, it has been Elliot working in the shadows, and you can see that Tyrell is really compelled by that idea, and I really love seeing the difference between the two. And this also gets Elliot to realize that Tyrell is really the only person that generally cares for him. Everyone else has cast him aside. Everyone else at this point, he doesn't even know to trust. Even Olivia last week, he doesn't know if he can fully trust her either because she is still working for White Rose. Tyrell is the only person that Elliot can depend on at this point. And because of that, he does actually learn to value him. And I really like seeing this transformation because, again, Tyrell's always been an adversary for Elliot. He's always been someone that even when he wasn't like the main person, Elliot's never seen him as someone that he can work with. But this episode really showed the possibilities there, and I really did like seeing that overall. But I also like that Elliot finally gets to admit how he feels to Tyrell, because there's been a lot of internalized feelings there. He's never really admitted to him how he truly does feel. Tyrell has known that Elliot's always had this other persona of him and that there's always been something off there. He doesn't know, he obviously doesn't know fully about Mr. Robot and all that stuff, but he knows that him and Elliot had some sort of weird relationship and that he always lashed out and things like that. But Elliot's never really told him how he truly does feel, and this is when he finally gets to admit that, like, he doesn't care about him. He's never once cared about him. He's done all of this for Darlene. That's the person that he cares about. Everything he's done for her, and I really love that Elliot admitted this finally, because there's always been that sense that, him working with Tyrell and what he's doing, it's been very disingenuous, and you kind of wondered, like, why is he just doing this? It's for Darlene, and considering how just selfless she has been for him, it makes sense why he would be this way. And again, I just really like getting to see these two finally come to an understanding, finally get to understand each other. These two are really connecting on a deeper level finally, and it gets them to have this respect for each other that they've never really had before, and I really did like seeing that. But that, of course, leads to the elephant in the room, and that is Tyrell's death, or at least his alleged death. And look, I've heard a lot of people say that this was too early, there was no reason to kill him off. I actually do think that this was pretty satisfying. Now, look, he may not technically be dead. There is a sense that maybe he could come back. There is a sense that maybe something's going to happen in the next episode and he'll be, he'll be okay. But as of right now, he is in fact dead. And I gotta say, if this is Tyrell's final episode, I actually do think it was very satisfying, considering how focused this was on him and how it really dealt with every single issue he's had, stemming all the way back to, like, his father and all that kind of stuff, and how he always had pressure put on him and everyone had this expectation of him, how he's been jealous of Elliot, but also finally getting to see Tyrell redeem himself, only for him to die basically a hero's death, I think is a fantastic arc, and I think it makes sense why we did wrap this up here, because honestly, considering how much is going on, I think it makes sense for this character to bite the dust, this quickly, and him getting shot, I've heard a lot of people say, like, why didn't something happen there? Why didn't they check to see if this guy was dead? I mean, they knew this guy was dead, but remember, they don't have much time. Like, they don't have time to check to see if this guy's still alive. They know that White Rose is setting up this meeting. They were going to try to do what they can to make sure that this goes in their favor. We don't exactly know what they were planning, but they know that they don't have a lot of time left, so they can't just check the guy and things like that. So that's not really an issue for me at all, and when he ends up shooting Tyrell and things like that, I actually thought it was a very effective moment. It's finally Tyrell being selfless for once, which he's really never been. Everything he's done, even though, yes, he said it's been for other people, it's really only been for himself, whether it was him getting to be with Joanna, or him doing something for, him trying to be CTO, or him trying to gain this deeper connection with Elliot. For once, he's doing this for his son. He's doing this so his son can live. He knows that the Dark Army has his son, and he knows that they're going to sacrifice his son if he doesn't die in this moment. And he knows that he doesn't want Elliot to die either, because Elliot is what he wishes he could be, and he knows that Elliot has a goal. Tyrell is directionless at this point. He doesn't feel he has much of a purpose, and so he can kind of be at peace in that way. And that's why when Elliot says, like, we got to get you to a hospital, come on with us, that's why Tyrell doesn't want to go, because he knows he is okay with sacrificing himself. He's okay with just letting himself go. But of course, the big question is, what is that purple light? What is this alluding to? I think it honestly stems back to what Tyrell said about the sound of death. There's always that sense that something is coming in this episode. This is building up to something. So I think that purple light is kind of maybe the light of death. Maybe that's him kind of like accepting it. I'm not entirely sure, but again, I am fairly satisfied, to be honest with you. I don't really see what else. I mean, sure, there's things they could have done with the character. Like, again, they could have had more on him being the celebrity, but him not wanting to do much there. But honestly, I feel like we covered the ground that we needed to with him. He lost his wife, he now knows that his son is with the Dark Army. He understands Elliot a lot more. He was fully starting to go in a heroic direction, but Tyrell's never been a hero. Tyrell has always had this dastardly side to him, and he knows that. He knows that he doesn't get to be a hero in this sense. He is finally punishing himself for, like, all the things he's done. He has deep regret for what he's done, and I think this episode really did dive deep into that. So I really don't have a problem with Tyrell dying this way. I honestly thought it was pretty satisfying. Again, they could end up bringing him back, but as of right now, if this is the end, I'm honestly okay with it. But of course, there is other stuff going on within this episode, getting into the stuff with Darlene, who I have to say, I loved what they did with her here. I think this is probably one of Darlene's strongest episodes, certainly one of Carly Chaikin's strongest episodes. And again, I don't get this complaint here. Like, yes, she does run into a random stranger, but who else is she supposed to run into? I mean, Darlene literally has no one at this point. Her, boyfriend died. Her entire team, who she looked to as friends and colleagues, died. died. She doesn't even know if her brother's still out there. Angela's dead. Everyone that Darlene could go to for emotional support is dead. The only person she could go to is fucking Price, but she doesn't have a connection with Price right now. So it makes sense why she would just try to find comfort in this guy, but also showing just how truly selfless Darlene is. I mean, when she runs into this guy, she legitimately thinks that he is going to off himself. She thinks that this is the end. She doesn't realize that he's quoting movies. She doesn't realize that everything that she's worried about is in fact in her head. But she is doing whatever she can to help him in that way. And I actually did think it was a very effective moment. And I love the scene where he basically tells her something that you would think Darlene would know already, that she needs to start thinking for herself. She needs to stop focusing on just saving Elliot and doing what's best for Elliot and finally focusing on herself, which is something that she's never done. She's always done things for Elliot. Stemming back to season 1, we know how much Darlene hated corporations. We know how much Darlene, just hated the idea of these big businesses. Season 2, she became the very thing she hated, not because she got there. She did it for her brother. She did it because Elliot wasn't there. She lost Cisco because of Elliot. She was willing to sacrifice herself because of Elliot. She was willing to go to jail for Elliot. Every single thing she's done in the show has been for Elliot. So it makes perfect sense why he would finally tell her, start focusing on yourself and stop worrying so much about other people. And I actually really do like that arc there. And oh my god, the scene where she's just finally pouring out to him how she feels, how she's lost everyone, how she really doesn't know what else she can do. I mean, that right there should be her Emmy scene. I don't know if Carly Chaikin is going to get an Emmy nom, but if she is, she very well damn should just for that scene alone. It's probably her best performance in this entire show, and she's had many great scenes, but scenes like that just really show how great of an actor she is, and I don't think people talk about how great Carly Chaikin is here. I mean, yes, Rami Malek is fantastic. Yes, Christian Slater's fantastic, but the rest of the cast is really getting to shine this year. Wallström in this episode, but also Carly Chaikin just really killed it here, and I really loved the moment with her. But I also like where this is headed, that now she's realizing that hacking Olivia isn't enough. They need to go into Cyprus National Bank. They need to hack into there as fast as they possibly can, and I'm very excited to see that the way that all goes down. But really, like I said, I think this was a really nice arc for Darlene. Yes, it was small. Yes, this is a guy that is pretty insignificant, but it's the kind of person that Darlene needed right now. She needed someone that was, there for her, and she needed someone that could, that she realize that she is too concerned with. I mean, this is a guy that she thought was suicidal. She thought, his wife had died. In reality, his wife just had a really bad back injury, and he wasn't, he was quoting It's a Wonderful Life and things like that. And for a while, they actually kind of misled me. I thought this guy was going to be like a dark army agent or something. But I actually love the fact that he's just completely insignificant. He's just someone that Darlene was too worried about. And like I said, really just ties into her being selfless and never really focusing on herself. And finally having someone tell her that she needs to do so, I think is a very satisfying arc. And I think it puts Darlene in a very interesting place for the rest of the show for sure. So again, I really didn't have a problem with either of the main two arcs in this episode. What I did have a problem with was Dom's arc, and not the arc itself. It's just what we got in this episode was just a little bit redundant. I mean, I love seeing the cybersex stuff again because we kind of veered away from that in season 3, but it reminded me just how pathetic Dom is. The fact that she is communicating, but she keeps falling asleep on this guy, and she's talking to this guy that she clearly has no interest in. We know that she isn't even interested in guys, but she still talks to him anyway, just so she can have some sort of a connection with someone, because similar to Elliot, she has really bad social anxiety issues, as we know. But I really did like the idea that this turned out to be a girl, and Darlene invites her over, and not Darlene, Tom invites her over to her apartment and things like that, and it ends up going horribly wrong. Basically it turns out that this girl is a dark army agent and things like that, almost nearly drowns Dom, only for her to wake up and realize it's all a dream. So again, in theory, I don't hate this idea. It's mainly just we've gone here before. We've treaded this ground before that basically everyone that Dom is encountered with, she's worried is affiliated with the Dark Army. She is just terrified to talk to anyone right now, and you really do get to see that here. She's worried that, you know, the most random person could end up being connected to the Dark Army, and she knows just how, tentative she needs to be with what she says and does, so you can understand why she does feel the way. And again, that's not my problem. I think that is a really good arc. It's just, it's a bit redundant, considering that we got that in the season premiere. We've really been exploring that, you know, for the 3 episodes that Dom has been in so far. So I just don't think this did anything particularly new. I just think, if anything, it just reinforced the idea that Dom is paranoid, and that literally everyone she goes to is someone that she is afraid of in that way. And I don't really know where that is headed at this point. But other than that, I really did love a lot of things about this episode. Yes, there was a lot of weird imagery. Yes, it was very different. But you know what? I really dug it. I love the idea that we kind of saw this, you know, like the desolate woods embracing the hopelessness in, you know, kind of, representing the hopelessness in Tyrell, or the sound of death and things like that, or the purple light. I mean, this episode, if anything, really just showed how great this show is with their attention to detail. These are the things that we're talking about. Even the people that don't like this episode, these are the things they're talking about. They're talking about this weird symbolism and this imagery. What does it mean? They're annoyed that it keeps, you know, they're annoyed that, you know, it showed up. But I, on the other hand, love the fact that Sam Esmail did this. I love the fact that this was an unconventional episode, because it made sense for Tyrell. And like I said, I'm honestly fine if this is the last that we do see of him. And it very well could be, because next week's episode, as far as, you know, to my knowledge at least, is almost completely silent, which is gonna be interesting to see. But you know what? I think the show can pull it off. I really do. I think the show is gonna be able to forward the momentum in a way where they're gonna be able to pull that off. And I forgot to say this in my review, but Matt Quayle's score is always a highlight for sure, but here, this is easily one of the best he's ever constructed. I love the just weird and like fantasy feel of it all. It almost reminded me of that episode of Euphoria that we got that was in a carnival that had like a completely different score to it. This was very much like that. It was very Lynchian in that way, and I think he just did an amazing job, and I don't think he gets credited enough for scores. And it's also one of the reasons why I'm actually really excited for that silent episode next week, just to hear what Matt Quayle is going to do, because he already kills it with every episode, but it was on another level here. Honestly, cutting characters like Angela and Tyrell early on in the season is fine, because I think people keep forgetting that, like, this season is very long. There is still a lot of time. It's only gonna make that back half that much more intense. I like the fact that we're moving at a slower pace right now, because we do have a longer season. If this was 10 episodes, we would be going full speed ahead. Tyrell probably wouldn't have died until later on in the season, but there's 13 episodes this season, so they really are taking their time here. And even though, yes, we've had Tyrell and Angela die, 2 of the biggest characters in the entire show already, it's only going to make that final confrontation that much more riveting. Because I can guarantee you that in like 3 or 4 weeks, I'm going to be sitting here like, guys, that's why we had slower episodes like episode 4. That's why we had episodes like, you know, episode 3, where it was just a little bit slower and there wasn't as much going on. It was because of this. You know, something big is definitely going to happen. And again, I do not buy the theory that whatever device the White Rose is building, that it's going to bring back Angela and Tyrell. I really hope that's not true. I am trying to debunk that theory as much as possible, because the show has flirted with the idea of sci-fi before, but anything they flirted with last year, you know, in the last season, was basically just delusions, and I hope that they end up going in that direction. I don't want to see them go in a sci-fi direction, because it's just going to kill the realism of the show. It's going to kill the, you know, again, the momentum that the show has been building towards, and I really hope they don't end up going there. I don't personally think they're going to go there, but I've heard a lot of people try to use that theory in an effort to bring Tyrell back. I just don't think it's happening, guys. I really don't. I think that, yes, White Rose's device, I said it last week, I do think that is connected to Chen, but I don't think that it's actually going to work. I think she's honestly in over her head, and I think that she has convinced herself that she can do this time travel, when in reality, I don't really think that she can. I mean, again, we don't know. There's still a lot of, a lot of mysticism of what's really going on there. But again, at the end of the day, I can say that I really did love this episode. It was quieter, but it was really personal. This was a personal episode for Tyrell, and showing just how complex of a character he is, but also showing the idolism he really does have for Elliot, or Darlene, someone who has always been selfless, and her realizing that she can be selfish every once in a while, and her kind of finding this kindred spirit in the form of this drunken Santa Claus, someone who seems so insignificant but really gave her that advice that she needed to hear. Or Dom, someone who is so paranoid, and she's finally kind of recognizing it, and I'm excited to see where that really does go. Like I said, it really is only Dom's storyline that keeps this from being a perfect episode to me, because aside from that, this is everything I love about Mr. Robot. I love the uncertainty, I love the weirdness, and I love the unconventionality of it all. This is a fantastic episode that I thought was a really great send-off to Tyrell. Probably gave us more Wallström's best performance to date. Yes, it definitely wasn't for everyone. I completely understand it, but for me, I fucking loved this episode, and I'm definitely going to give Mr. Robot Season 4, Episode 4, Not Found, an A. I know this may be controversial. I know you guys might be like, what are you talking about? How can you feel this way? But guys, I love Season 2. You really shouldn't be that surprised that I love this episode as much as I did. But I'm in a minority when it comes to certain things that happen on Mr. Robot. I've established this before, and it's fine. And if you don't like this episode, that's fine as well. It's just, for me, I was pretty much satisfied with what they overall did here. But overall, guys, for this episode, let me know what you guys...